G'day so-and-sos and welcome to my sewing room. If we haven't met before, my name's Kathy and I'm stoked to have you here today because I've drafted up another fun bag for us to make. Now this bag I would say would be a good sort of confident beginner level. Pretty basic techniques, but it does have a couple of zippers. If you haven't done zippers before, I'll show you. It's easy. So it's got a slip pocket on the front, a zipper pocket on the back, and then it has the main compartment, which is big enough for your phone and keys. It has a nice long adjustable strap on it. So if you're like me and you like to wear your bag nice and low on your hip, then that will be great. Or if you're a taller person, unlike me, it'll still be long enough. Okay, well, I'm about ready to get going, so let's get cracking. Let's have a look at the supplies we need for today's project. So over here, scissors, rotary cutter, snippers, clips, pins, marking tool, and something to turn out my work. Then I have an acrylic ruler and a good cutting mat. Then I have some double-sided thin sticky tape. Hard to say with the lisp. That's going to help me install my zippers. If you don't have any, you can use pins. Then I have some wider double-sided sticky tape. That's going to help me with my strap. And then I have some zipper tape. I have 9.5 inches and 7 inches and number 5 zipper heads. If you don't know how to put these on, pop over to my channel and check out some of my shorts that I have on how to do that. Otherwise, you can just buy some zipper tape that already has them on there. Then I have some hardware. I have 1-inch D-rings and I have 2 of them. 1-inch swivel hooks, 2 of them. 1-inch strap slider and a couple of 8x8 rivets. Now, if you don't want to use rivets or you haven't got a rivet press, it's fine. Don't worry about it. I'll just remind you where to sew over the strap when we get up to that bit. Okay, let's have a look at our fabric and interfacing. So here I have my fabric and my interfacing. Now, as far as my fabric goes, you can use whatever you want. If you want to use all cotton woven, use all cotton woven. If you want to use some vinyl for your exterior, use vinyl. I would just recommend that you use the corresponding interfacing that I'm using. So for my main panel pieces, I'm using this black suede. It's very thin though. So I'm using a fusible fleece for the interfacing for that. For the lining pieces, I'm using this navy cotton drill and I'll be using a light interfacing with that. Now you could just use cotton woven, would work just as well. It was just that the color I wanted, I only had in this drill. And then for my accent piece, I have this really pretty cotton woven and I'll be using fusible fleece for this piece, and then the backing of my pocket I'll be using my lining fabric so it will have the light interfacing. This will all be written on your pattern pieces, which I'll have a link to in the description box, and I'll write it out in the description box as well. So make sure you've printed out your pattern pieces and you've had a look at that description box. Now this fabric, if you're wondering, I'm pretty sure is from Missy Rose here in Australia. She's an amazing fabric designer. Okay, so print out your pattern pieces, cut your pieces out and cut out your interfacing, and I'll just go over it again in a moment as well. So here I have all my pattern pieces cut out with their interfacing, and I'll go over it just quickly for you. So over here I have my exterior pieces and I've cut that out with some fusible fleece and I have 2 of each. And then I have my lining pieces. I've cut them out of that lining fabric, that drill, with some light interfacing, and I have 2 of each. And then I have my zipper pocket, which I've cut out of the lining fabric, and I have some light interfacing to go with that one. And then I have my exterior pocket. I have that pretty accent fabric, which I've cut fusible fleece to go with that one. And then the backing for this pocket is my lining fabric, and I have light interfacing for that one. And then I have my strap, which I've cut out of that black suede as well. And I'm going to use a fusible fleece for the lining for this. Now, if you want to use fusible fleece, that would be great because it's going to give me some softness to my strap and a little bit of shape and structure. And it's going to make it that little bit thicker, but not heavy. So because fusible fleece is so light, I think any sewing machine is going to have no problem going through this. If you're using a vinyl for your strap, don't use any interfacing. If you're worried about using fusible fleece for your strap, then it's fine. Just use a light interfacing or don't use any. It'll still work. But I think this will be nice and comfortable with that. So go and cut out all your pattern pieces, all your interfacing, and then iron all of it on. If you're using vinyl, you can use interfacing. Just make sure that you iron it on from the interfacing side. Don't ever touch vinyl with your hot iron. Okay, go do all that, and I'll see you back here in a moment. So I have my strap, ruler, double-sided sticky tape, and a marking tool. I'm going to place my strap wrong side up. Now what we're going to do is measure 2 inches up from either side. So our strap's 4 inches, so that will be halfway. So I'll just do a little bit and show you. Okay, then I'm going to grab my sticky tape and lay it down along that line. Now, like I said, if you don't have double-sided sticky tape, you can just do it by hand and then clip or pin as you go. But tape will make life a little bit easier. Just be aware that it will get on your needle and you will need to clean your needle off with an alcohol wipe. So I'll just go down halfway so I can keep it in frame and show you. Peel that off. Then what we're going to do is just fold one side in to meet that line. Now just fold up and press. Don't wipe because that will stretch your fabric. Just fold up and press. And see how much that tape helps just holding everything in place. Cool. Grab some clips and then we're just going to fold in half again. Sorry if that's a little bit hard to see with black, but it's pretty easy process. And fold in half and then just clip all the way down and just make sure that your folded edges are nicely meeting up. So go ahead and do that to your whole strap. Clip it, heaps of clips, probably whack a few on that side as well. And I'll see you back here when we've got that done. Okay, there I am all clipped up. Now we are going to take this over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew along the folded edge first. And we're going to get as close as we can to that edge, so around 1/8 of an inch. We are going to start from one end, sew down that folded edge, and then come back up to the top and sew from this end, and then go along that other side. We don't want to go down around across here and then back up because that can cause our fabric to twist and we don't want a twisty strap. So let's go and do that bit. Okay, I've got my stitch length at about a 4.5 and I'm going to start on that folded edge. Now you might see this zipper foot I'm using is a little bit different as well. If you don't have something like this, don't worry about it, just use what you've got. I'm just using this one because it's got this bit here that's going to give me that nice edge and line it up for me and just make life a little bit easier. But you just use whatever you've got. I'll be changing over feet a little bit as I go. So if you've got something that matches, then feel free to do the same. Otherwise, just use whatever you think is going to work for you. Just adjust as you need to, as you go. At the end, I'm just going to back stitch a little bit. And then, like I said, I'm going to start from the same side and the same end as what I started from. I'm not going to flip it over, and I'm not going to just turn around and come back up. That will help my strap lay a little bit flatter. Now, because I'm doing that and I'm not sort of sewing it from the other way, my foot is now, as you can see, all the way over my strap. So I'm just going to watch this side of my foot and line it up with the side of my strap. And that's where I'm watching at the front of that foot. I'm not watching my needle. And back stitch a little bit. Done. Okay, let's have a look at how we put the hardware on this strap. So I have my strap, my slider, my 2 swivel hooks, and my rivets. Again, if you don't want to use rivets, that's fine. So what I'm going to do, grab my strap and my slider. I'm going to poke him through one end and then turn it around and back through the other end. So he's just like that, pretty easy. I'm going to leave a end bit of around 1.5 inches, and with that I'm going to whack a hole in there about halfway down. If you want to measure it, go ahead, but it's pretty easy to eyeball. Pop my rivet through, pop the back on, and then I'll give it a little press. So if you don't have a rivet press, this is where you would take it over to your sewing machine and just sew yourself a little triangle or just a straight line across. Or you could do a rectangle around with a cross in the middle if you wanted to. But there is our rivet on. Now I've got the wrong side, so the wrong side is where it's folded over. I've got the wrong side up, and I'm going to pop my hook on. So my hook is going to go, so the straight edge is on the wrong side. So my hook is on the right side. And then poke that through, and then through again, just like that. So my hook is on the same side as the buckle. Okay, then I'm going to grab my other hook and I'm going to put it so its back is also on the wrong side, like that. And then fold it over, give myself about the same, about 1.5 inches. Give myself a hole. Now, of course, you don't need 2 of these. I'm just being spoilt. And it saves me a little bit of time when I'm filming not to have to swap the dies over. But if you don't have one of these cam presses yet, they are fantastic. So much easier than the handheld ones. And they're pretty cheap these days. I bought my extra one for $25 off Green Beans here in Australia, greenbeans.com. So there we go. There's my strap. So that's what it looks like on that side. And then on the right side, I have my clips on the ends and my buckle in the middle. So I hope you were able to make one of them if you haven't made one before. And now we can go on to the next bit. Let's have a look at our exterior pocket piece. So I have a marking tool, my exterior pocket, my lining, and some clips. Now all I'm going to do is place these right sides together. So that just means pretty side to pretty side. And then I'm going to clip along my edges. Or you can use pins if you don't have clips, of course. And then we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew down these sides, the bottom, and part of the top. But we are going to leave ourselves a 3-inch turnout hole at the top. So we're going to start sewing here, backstitch really well, up to the corners, down the sides. We're going to leave the corners and then we're going to sew along the bottom. So let's go over to the machine and get this bit done. Okay, I'm going to have my stitch length on around a 3.5, and I'm going to start up here near my turnout hole. And I'm going to backstitch really well because we're going to be turning that out and pulling on it. And when I get up to this corner, I'm going to stop. I'm going to pivot at a 45-degree angle. So you can see I've got that little triangle here, and just put in a couple of stitches there and then come down this side. And I'm just going to slow my machine down a little bit. Now remember, we're not doing this bottom corner. Just down to that corner and backstitch. And then the other side, start from the other side of that turnout hole. Backstitch really well. Up to this corner. 45 degrees. Couple less stitches. And then down this side. Now I'm at about a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'll remember to put that up on the screen. Trim that, and then just along the bottom. Just like that. Okay, there's our pocket all stitched down. Now what I'm going to do is just take the tips of these top corners off, make it a little bit easier, and then we're going to turn it out. So from our turnout hole, there we go. Oh, I love the colour of this fabric, it's so pretty. Okay, I'm going to use this guy to poke out my corners. Now if you haven't got one of these things, you'll see me using different coloured ones all around for different things. It's called that little purple thing, Thang. Now you can buy it online from sewing shops, but Temu and Amazon have them as well, and it's a little bit cheaper. And give that a bit of a hit with the iron. Okay. Now what we're going to do is take this back over to the sewing machine. I'll clean up all these loose threads. And we are just going to sew along this top edge at 1/8 inch, just to close up that hole. Okay, we are top stitching, so I've lengthened my stitch length to around a 4.5, and we're going to stay nice and close to that edge. So I'm about 1/8 inch. And that's it, too easy. Now we're going to attach our pocket to our main exterior piece. So I'm going to place that on top, and you're going to notice it's going to be a little bit smaller, and that's fine. We don't want too much bulk in our seams. And I'm just going to line up this edge with the exterior piece. Then I'm going to grab some clips and, oh sorry, what are these called? Pins. And whack a couple of pins in there just to hold it in place. Then we're just going to baste it. So we're just going to baste at a long stitch as close as we can to this edge, just down along that side and along the bottom. So let's go do that. Okay, like I said, I'm using a longer stitch length and I'm just staying as close to that edge as I can. I'm just going to back stitch really well up there at that top corner. I'm not sewing along these corners. Just going to go along the bottom, back stitch, nice and close to the edge of that bottom piece. And then up this side. And back stitch really well. Now we're going to look at installing our zipper pocket. So I have one of my main exterior pieces, my zipper pocket, acrylic ruler, scissors, pen, and some pins. So I'm going to find my centers. So I'm going to fold my piece in half at the top and find the middle of that top edge and just give myself the smallest little snip. Or you can mark it with a pen if you want to. And then I'm going to fold my zipper pocket and give it a little snip. I prefer doing the snip because you can really see where it is from both sides of your fabric. Okay, now I'm going to fold this guy over and I'm going to measure 1 inch down from that top, and I'm going to give myself a 5-inch line centered. So I'll go 2.5 inches from that center mark in one direction and then 2.5 in the other. So then I've got a 5-inch mark. Then I'll measure down 1/2 inch from that one and give myself another line. Just like that. And then I'll line up and give myself sides. And then I will find the center, which will be a 1/4 inch. So I'll just line up that 1/4 inch line of my ruler with that line that I drew. Don't worry if it's not exact, you'll be fine. And give myself another line. Then I'm going to just sketch in some little triangles on either end, just like that. Pretty easy. Then I'll grab my exterior panel and I'll place my ruler 1 inch down from the top, just like that, and I can see my center snip, and I'm going to lay my fabrics right sides together, so pretty side to pretty side, lining up my center snip just like that. And then I'll whack some pins in place to hold it. Okay, now we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and we are going to stitch along our box. Don't worry about the middle line, don't worry about the triangles, we're just going to go around the outside. Okay, so I have a nice short stitch length. I'm going to go a 3 mil stitch length and I'm going to back stitch really well and take it nice and easy. Now I'm watching the front of my foot. and lining up that line into the middle of the front of that foot up until I get to the corner. One extra stitch there, pivot, and pivot. Now if your machine doesn't have that one stitch button, just use your flywheel if you need to, because you just want to land on those corners pretty much as exactly as you can. And pivot, and that's why I have a shorter stitch length as well, so my stitches aren't really long and going over my lines. Cool, let's go back to the table and have a look at the next step. So there is our zipper pocket all stitched around. Now I'll get rid of these pins, and then what I'm going to do is use my seam ripper to open up this. So I'm going to find that line in the middle, poke my seam ripper through all the layers, and then very carefully slide it up to the tip of that triangle I made. I don't want to go too much further than that. Turn it around and do the other side. Now this is just a bit easier than using scissors because that box is quite small. Now again, push it up as far as I can without getting it too close to those stitches. Now I'll grab my scissors, and I'm going to snip along those triangle lines up to those corners. Again, being really careful not to hit my stitches. If you do hit your stitches, just take it back to the sewing machine and just go over that bit again, just back stitch over it a little bit. And there. Now I'm just going to shove this pocket through that hole. Flip it over and just turn all of that lining pocket out to the back. Now I'm going to grab my iron and my ironing mat. Okay, now I'm just going to give this a good iron. Now your corners probably won't lay down flat, and don't worry too much about it. If it's really wrinkly, then turn it back in the other way and then just clip those corners a little bit more so that it lays a little bit flatter for you. But it's not going to lay perfectly flat, and that's fine. Now if you've used vinyl, be super careful and just make sure that your piece isn't getting too hot. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, now I'm going to grab my zipper and my double-sided tape, and I'm just going to lay some double-sided tape along the top and the bottom. Just like that. Take the tape off. Now I'm just going to lay my zipper there, and then I'm going to place my pocket over the top. Just pull that zipper head in and just try and get it sitting as straight as I can in there. So if you didn't have double-sided sticky tape, then just leave the tape off, place it over the top, and then whack some pins in there to hold it all in place. Cool. Just make sure that you've got some hanging over each edge, and that's why we cut it so long. Now we're going to take this over to the sewing machine, and we are going to stitch at 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Okay, we're top stitching, so our stitch length is still at around the 4.5. And I'm going to move this zipper head down out of the way. You do not want to be accidentally hitting that with your needle. So I'm staying as close to this edge as I can. I'll lift my presser foot, move that head out of the way, and keep going down. Pivot. Pivot. Oh, I love how that blue thread shows up against the black. That's really pretty. And then same thing, get that zipper head out of my way. Over those teeth, back stitch. Too easy. Okay, clip away some of those loose threads and then get rid of some of this zipper tape. Cut that excess away. Just be really careful not to cut your fabric by accident. Grab my mat and my iron, and I'm going to fold up that pocket piece and line up the bottom with the top and the sides all nice and neat. Then I'm just going to clip that in place. Now we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew at about 1/4 inch around those 3 sides and close up our pocket. Now if we just sewed, then we're going to sew through our exterior piece as well, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do is fold our sides. We can do it from the front. I prefer to do it this way. Fold our sides under, sew up this side, fold down that top bit, sew across the top, and then fold in that side piece. If you wanted to, like I said, you could sort of squish it up from the front and sew from this side, whatever sort of fits more comfortably for you at the sewing machine. So let's head over and do that. So I'm going to shorten my stitch length to about 3.5 and work from either side you find easiest. I find it easier to work from the back. Just fold that side piece up first, starting at the bottom at about 1/4 inch seam allowance, and back stitch up to the top, being careful that I'm catching both sides and that exterior piece is up out of the way. I'm just going to angle that 45-degree angle, drop 1 or 2 stitches and turn, and then I've folded down the top of my exterior piece, being very careful. Same thing, give it 1 little angle stitch and then fold up this side. And then down this side. Cool. Good job. Now let's look at putting this zipper tab on our zipper. So I have my 2-inch square zipper tab. It's interfaced with light interfacing. I'm going to place it wrong side up and just fold those sides into the middle. Give it an iron. And then fold it in half again, just like that. And then I'm going to pop it on the end of my zipper. Now, if my zipper is opening that way, closing that way, then this is the end, and that's the end that I want it on. So I'm just going to fold it over the end of that piece, whack some clips on. We're going to take that over to the sewing machine and sew at this end as close as we can at about 1/8 inch. Okay, we are top stitching, so I'm lengthening my stitch length to about 4.5, and I'm going to stay as close to this bottom end as I can. So I'm just going to back stitch a tiny bit. So across those teeth to the other side, back stitch a little bit, done. Too easy. Let's have a look at these connectors. So same as what we did for the straps pretty much. I'm just going to fold it in half and then fold those sides into the middle and give it a finger press. Now if you're using cotton woven, you'll be able to give that a little bit of an iron to hold it in place. But I'm not going to mess with the iron near this suede. I'm just going to use my clips. Just like that. And then we're just going to take them over to the sewing machine and we are going to sew these sides down. Then while we're there, we're going to slip our D-ring on and fold it over and sew it down. So just like this, I'll put my D-ring on that way, fold it in half and sew across that top edge, but I'll show you that over at the sewing machine. Okay, I'm top stitching, so I have made sure that my stitch length is a little bit longer. And I'm going to stitch from the right side, so the side that doesn't show the fold. Little back stitch. And just down that side. Now, because this is only short, I'm not worried about going across the bottom and back up the other side. It'll be fine to do that. Just like that. Okay, now I'm going to grab one of my D-rings and I'm going to place it so the ring part is on that right side. So the flat part is against the backing. Fold it over, whack it under and just backstitch well and hold that down in place. Do the other one exactly the same as that and I'll see you back at the table. So there's my D-rings sewn onto my connectors. Now we're going to attach these to our main panel or panels. So what I'm going to do is measure in 1.5 inches from the left side with the right side facing up and pop some clips on there, just like that. Then I'm going to do it on the same side on the other one. So 1.5 inches, pop it on, and I'm going to leave about 1/8 of an inch hanging over that panel. So on both of them, I've got about 1/8 of an inch at the top. So you want to make sure that you've got them both on the left side so that when our bag is together, I have one on the left and one on the right. So let's take this over to the sewing machine and we are just going to stitch that on as close as we can to that top edge, so about 1/8 of an inch, and we are going to backstitch, sister. So I'm shortening my stitch length to around 3.5. And remember, I've got that 1/8 of an inch or so hanging up over the top. And we are going to backstitch because there is going to be a lot of weight on here. Just like that. Now it will get stitched over again when we add our zipper, but we just want to make sure that it's absolutely stitched on really well. So because we're going really close to the edge of that main panel as well, just flip it over and make sure that you actually cord it all of the way across that main panel. Now what we're going to do is start the assembly process. So I've got my main panel piece with the accent pocket handy and one of my lining pieces and a ruler. So I'm going to place my accent pocket piece facing up towards me, grab my zipper, and I'm going to measure in 1 inch from the right hand top side and place my zipper with that tab right at the 1 inch mark, and my zipper is face down, so my pieces are right sides together. And with those edges lined up, I'm just going to clip along that edge. Then I'm going to grab my lining piece and place it right sides together with my zipper and main panel, and just shift those clips along so that that zipper is sandwiched in there nicely. I'm going to grab a pen and I'm going to measure in 1 inch from the left hand side and give myself a mark. I'm going to do that on this side as well, just in case I have it up this way at the sewing machine, because I can never work it out in my head. Just like that. So that 1 inch mark will be at the end where our zipper head is, and then the zipper tab is down this end. Now we're going to take it over to the sewing machine, and starting from the side where the zipper tab is, we are going to sew our pieces together. Now I'm going to shorten my stitch length to around a 3.5, and I'm starting at the end where that zipper tab is, not the zipper head. And I'm at about 1/4 inch. Now I'm feeling for those teeth, and I can feel them there, so I know the edge of it is there, and I want to stay relatively close to that as I sew. So I'm going to back stitch, and then with this finger and this finger I'm feeling where those teeth are. I don't want to get my fingers too close to that needle. So if you've done any sewing with me before, you might be familiar with the butler method of zippers, and that is what we're going to do. So coming up over that connector tab, nice and slow, making sure my D-ring is down and out of the way. And I'm coming up to that 1 inch mark that I made. I'm going to stop there. I'm going to lift my presser foot, open up my piece, and pull this zipper head down out of the way. All the way down there. And then I can pull this piece down out of the way. What I'm going to do now is grab this piece of zipper tape, pull it up to a 90-degree angle, hold it there, and go over it. And then over it again. Up to the end, and back stitch a little bit. And that is the butler method. So if we have a look at how nicely that zipper now just disappears into the piece. Lovely. So there is that zipper sewn in, just like that. Lovely. I'm going to leave that bit long for a moment though. Now in a moment we're going to iron that down and then go and top stitch over there. But before we do that, just to be a little bit more organised with our time, we're going to do the second piece first. So what we're going to do is grab our other main panel piece and place it right sides together. And then we're going to line it up with the top edge. So if you look at it that way, with the top edge of that zipper tape, and whack some clips on there to hold that in place. Now that D-ring is going to pop up because it's now sticking up, which is what we want, but we also want to be really careful that we don't hit it at the sewing machine. So fold it down out of the way and just be really aware of that. Pop it over, grab your other lining piece and fold it over right sides together. And then shift all those clips to include it. So I'm just lining up the top of that lining with the top of the zipper tape and the other pieces. So we've got a big sandwich. Same thing. I'm going to measure in 1 inch from where the open end of my zipper is, so I can do the same thing, that same butler method. And I'll do it on both sides because, again, like I said, I can never work out in my head what I'm doing. There we go. Okay, so we're going to go back over to the sewing machine and do the same thing. We're going to sew along here, stopping at that 1 inch mark, moving that tape up and sewing over it. Okay, so the most important thing is to make sure your D-rings are down and out of the way. You have 2 D-rings now to worry about, so make sure they're down. And I'm going to start at the zipper tab end. And same thing, I'm about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to feel where everything is as I go. And back stitch. That connector tab, if you need to use the hump jump to get over that bump, then do so. And nice and slow and feeling where everything is. Now I know that zipper head is somewhere around here too. Don't want to hit that, so I'm going to lift my presser foot with my needle down on my work so everything doesn't fly around on me, and get that zipper head down and out of the way. So I've just got my main panel, my zipper tape and my lining piece there. And continue down to my 1 inch mark, which is there. There we go, lift that one up, sew over it, back stitch a little bit and up to the end. So there we have our pieces all sewn together. Very cool. Now we're going to give it a bit of an iron. Now because I've used suede, I can't iron it from the outside. So I'm going to have to do my best to press down this top seam around the zipper from the inside. If you've used vinyl or something like that, you'll have to do the same thing as me. We just want to get this top seam around the zipper as flat as we can because we're going to top stitch it from the other side. Now I'm going to grab some clips, flip it over and open it up. Open up that zipper. Very cool. And then I'm going to whack some clips along that edge just to hold it where I want it. And then a couple in the side as well, just to hold those lining pieces together so they don't flop up at me at the sewing machine and I don't accidentally sew over them. Then we're going to take it back over to the machine and we're going to top stitch along these edges at 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I'm top stitching, so I'm going to lengthen my stitch length to around a 4.5. And I'm going to start nice and close to that edge. And I'm holding, making sure that my lining piece is sewn down. Just a little back stitch there. Up over that tape. And I'm lining up this side of my foot with this edge of the fabric. And now up over that connector tab as well, which is going to reinforce it again. And back stitch. Okay, other side. I've just moved that zipper head out of my way. Up over that zipper tab. I'll open it up, get that zipper head out of the way again. Holding that D-ring up out of my way so it doesn't flop down. over the connector, over the zipper tape. Cool. So there it is, all top stitched down and looking good. Now what we're going to do, I'm going to place the right sides of my main panel pieces together like that, and then my lining sides, right sides together like that. So it'll look like that. Then I'm going to start clipping. I'm going to start where they meet. So I'm going to put a clip in that seam on both sides. I'm going to close up that zipper tape. That might help me get it sitting where it's meant to. There we go. And then I'm going to clip down the sides, shifting it around as best I can. And along the bottom. Then what I'm going to do is grab my pen and I'm going to give myself a mark on one of the lining sides. I'm going to give myself 5 inches along one side. That's going to be my turnout hole. So I'm going to mark it on the other side as well, because I am terrible for forgetting to leave my turnout hole. And then I'm going to clip along the lining as well. You'll find the lining will line up a bit better because we don't have the bulk of that pocket and everything on that piece. So if you struggle getting that piece to line up, don't worry about it, it's normal. Don't drive yourself nuts over it. Okay, now what we're going to do is take it over to the sewing machine and we are going to stitch up along this side. So you can see those stitches, that's where I joined up my pocket. So that's where I want to be stitching, up along those stitches. Up this side, up over this bump, and down the lining side. I'm not going to do the corners anywhere. Then I'm going to go across the bottom and then up along that side, leaving my turnout hole, and along the bottom of my main piece. Now we're going to do the corner, we're going to do boxed corners, so just ignore the corners for now and ignore that piece for now. Let's go do that. So I've shortened my stitch length to around 3.5, and I'm going to line up my needle with those stitches from my pocket. And back stitch. Up the side. Now I'm feeling for any metal up here. Don't want to hit anything. If you need to use your hump jump to get up over that zipper end bit, then do so. And back stitch. Same thing, I'm going to follow where those stitches are for that pocket. Because I don't want that pocket in my seam, because then I'll have thick themes. Nobody wants to have thick themes. So I'm staying to the outside of it. Now when I get up here, I'm just going to double check where all of that hardware is and where that zipper head is. It's right there too. Poke him down out of the way. Did not want to be hitting that with my needle. And then up over this bump. I will use my hump jump. Pop that under there. If you don't have a hump jump, you can just fold up a piece of fabric into a little square so it gives you some height. And there's my turnout hole. Back stitch really well a couple of times because we're going to be pulling on that. Down. Making sure that's not tight. Back stitch really well. You don't want to leave your turnout hole all the way to the bottom here. You want to make sure that you're doing what I'm doing and leaving about an inch where we're sewing as well. And then do along the bottom. Back stitch well. And then the bottom of the main piece. And I'll go from this side where I can see those stitches from my pocket. And go along the bottom of that pocket edge, catching it just a little bit. There we go. So there we go. We've left our turnout hole, but everything else is stitched. I'm going to stick my hand in there and just feel up in these corners and make sure my finger doesn't poke through anywhere. Then I'm going to take my scissors and just trim down that bottom seam. I'm not going to trim this side where my turnout hole is. I want to leave that fabric there so that I can close up that hole. But I'm just going to trim away any excess fabric so that it's not in my seams. And that bottom piece. Just a little bit on this side. Cool. Okay, now we're going to look at boxing these corners. So let's start on the lining ones. What I'm going to do is just put my finger in that corner and pull it out. So I'm matching up those seams just like that. And then I'm going to whack a couple of clips on there. Then same with this one. Stick my fingers in the corners, pull, and match up the seams. And that is going to give us the shape of the bottom of our bag. Just like that. Same thing with these ones. Stick my fingers in there, making sure that I'm getting that pocket all on one side. You don't want part of your pocket on one side and the lining of your pocket on the other. So make sure your pocket is all on one side. So when I look down in there, I can see all pretty fabric. And pull. And plenty of clips. And then we're going to take that back over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch across each corner at 3/8 of an inch. I'm going to whack some extra clips on here. We just want those pockets sitting properly, nicely. Like it's all going to get caught up in there, but we don't want any bumps. Okay, let's go over to the machine and do that bit. Okay, let's start on one of these main panel pieces. Now I've shortened my stitch length to 3.5 and I'm going at a good 3/8 of an inch, so nice and wide. And I've got my hump jump ready to get over all that seam because there is a lot. So nice and slow. I want to push that seam down. Oh, she's a good girl. And back stitch. And now I'm going to go over it again. Just to give it strength. Although I'm pretty confident. But why not if we're here? And back. And then where's my other corner? over, back stitch really well, and then go again. Cool. While you're here, just check. Open it up a little bit and check to make sure you can see all pretty fabric in there so that you know you've caught all of it. Okay, and then the lining. Lining will be much easier. And we don't really need to go over the lining again because we've got the strength in the outer shell. Make sure I've caught both sides. This one. Too easy. Let's go turn this out and have a look. Okay, I'm going to trim down those corners a little bit. Get rid of all the excess there. These ones aren't too bad. But I'll get rid of some of that just so I don't have that bulk sitting in the bottom of my bag. And as you do this, if you notice that you haven't caught all of your sides, then take it back to the sewing machine and just go over it again. Okay, fun part. We're going to birth this thing. Birth this thing. Hard to say with the lisp. I'm going to stick my finger in that turnout hole, push my zipper open all the way, and grab one of these bottom corners carefully, because we don't have much room. Start working that bag out. And it's called birthing for a reason. It's hot in here. Put the aircon on for this bit. So just really careful because you don't want to be hearing that rip noise at this stage. That would really suck. So I'm sort of sliding that lining down as well. So I'm not just pulling, I'm trying to slide that lining down over itself. Cool, here she comes. And turning that bit out. Poking those corners out, making sure that I caught all the corners. Now if you get this far, you turn out a corner and you see you haven't caught it, go back. You've put too much work into it so far to not do it properly. Even if you have to leave it for a day, if you're like, ugh, insert your choice of swear word here. You know, damn, I didn't catch all the corners and I'm tired and I'm frustrated. Just leave it for a day and come back to it. Cool. So that's what it should look like at this stage. Now we're just going to give this pocket a little bit of an iron and a little clip, and we'll go and sew that up. Okay, I've got my ironing mat. I'm just going to stick my fingers in that hole, give it a little tug so it will sort of sit naturally where it wants to line up with the seam that is already there. Give it a little hit with the iron and whack some clips or pins on there to hold it in place. And then we'll take it over to the sewing machine and just sew down that whole bit at 1/8 of an inch. And then we're almost done. So let's get that bit done. It's a nice, quick, easy bit. My stitch length is nice and short at around a 3.5. I'll line that up about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Back stitch a little. And just sew up that hole. Just make sure that you go all the way to the top of that hole and all the way to the bottom. Done. There we go. I've sewn up that hole, tucked the lining in, pop the strap on there and I am done. And that was so much fun. So if you had as much fun as me today, whether you watched just for funsies or if you sewed along with me, please give me a like and subscribe. Help me get those YouTube algorithms going. And otherwise, have a fabulous day and I will see you next time. And remember, it is only fabric. We can always buy more. Okay, peeps. See ya. Bugger.